r/AskReddit. Reddit is no longer on speaking terms with their former best friend for life due to one incident. What happened? She stopped talking to me after I wouldn't buy anything from her for her MLM. She eventually escaped the MLM, but it's been about 8 years with no communication. This happened to me too. A woman I became friends with through mutual friends started doing a jewelry MLM and was trying to get more business, so of course she asked a few friends who were pushovers to host her parties. After being invited to 5 parties in 2 months, I had only attended 2 of them out of feeling obligated. I told everyone I probably wasn't going to go to another one for a while, and that I wasn't in a position to buy anything at the time, since I'd just bought a house. Well, about 2 weeks go by, and I went to my friend's house for a little get together, and what I know, this woman has her MLM all on display, and I was tricked into having to sit through her sales pitch again. Which, whatever, there was free food and wine, so I just flipped through the sales booklet and minded my own business. Soon after this woman got done with her pitch, I passed by her in the kitchen and asked her how she was doing and how her family was, etc. She answered with something to the effect of, well, I would be doing much better if some people would be better friends and host a party for me. She then went on to say that I was a shit friend and that the other girls were better friends because they hosted parties for her and I didn't. I was dumbfounded. This woman was 40 something years old and talking like something out of a teenage drama. So I emphatically apologized and told her I'd been to 3 out of 6 parties for the same thing over the past few months and was broke as a joke from house expenses. Didn't faze her at all. So I just stopped talking to her. Didn't come as a surprise that all of the friends who supported her business no longer wanted anything to do with me after that conversation, so when they stopped reaching out, so did I. Sad. Really? She told me my boyfriend had been texting her and they had plans to meet up that afternoon to have sex, but she couldn't and had to tell me. We went over to his place. She went in first and I told her to text me when he started making moves. I get the text, knock on his door. He opens and says you shouldn't be here before slamming the door in my face. I knock again and I say, I know she's fucking in there. We came together. It's over. We leave together, and that was it for me and him. It was over for her and I when she started dating him a week later. 7 years of friendship gone like that. She was a snake. Edit. I haven't been on Reddit long, so I don't know if I should reply to everyone or post an edit here, so I'll do the edit LMAO for time's sake. This happened when I was 17. He was 20. She was 18. I had dated him for 3 years at that point and she vehemently hated him the entire time. I guess it was jealousy, or maybe they had been hooking up together long before that. I'm not sure. They aren't together anymore, but they lead similar, unhappy lives. I'm with a good man who loves me, and we have been together 7 years now. Had a huge friend explosion which resulted in my wife and I losing several friends. I'll try to keep this simple. Names changed to protect the innocent and the guilty. We had a large group of friends from our church for several years. We hung out virtually every weekend, went to the beach, hung out at each other's houses, etc. So one of the couples in the group, we'll call them Dave and Betty, were a bit physically intimate without being married. Note that we're all adults in our 20s with jobs and stuff. Anyway, Betty's dad didn't like Dave. Somehow Betty, Dave, and her parents ended up in church counseling to resolve these issues. At some point in counseling, it comes out that they're physically intimate and Betty's dad blows up, demands she stops seeing him, makes a big deal about it to the pastor. Dave's a piano player in the church, and they demand he stops playing, etc. So basically my wife and I were 100% on Dave's side in all of this, and no one else was. So we got Dave in the breakup/blowout and lost everyone else. Funny epilogue. A few years later it comes out that Betty's dad had been having a secret affair for years. So you know, he comes out super credible in his condemnation of his daughter's premarital sexual activity. But you know how that goes. He became more and more religious as time went on and started to expect me to follow the same laws he was starting to follow as an Orthodox Jew. I have nothing against the religion and actually find it quite fascinating. I just was not interested in participating in it. When we lived together, I wasn't allowed to store meat in the house, wasn't allowed to play music, among other things. Eventually he met a girl, and even though Orthodox Jews are not supposed to even touch a girl before marriage, they decided that, because they had not been raised Orthodox, they could let this one slide, lol. So she moved in, with her 2 elderly dogs, which would have been fine if they didn't leave them in our apartment, unattended for 24 hours every Friday night through Saturday night. Yep, they did not have anyone to take care of their dogs during that time, because all of their friends were also Jewish and participating in the same holiday, I can't remember what it's called, and expected me to do it. But they didn't tell me this. I literally came home on a Saturday afternoon to the dogs whining, no food or water, and having shit all over the place. Nope. Fuck that. I ended up moving out and got shafted out of a month's rent in the process. I called him some names, and we haven't spoken since. We were like sisters in high school. Her family was a second family to me because mine was pretty shitty. We went to college together and something changed. She met a new friends group and treated me like every little thing I said or did was the most annoying thing in the world. She'd go out of her way to ditch me for group events with mutual friends, conveniently forgetting to invite me until other mutual friends mentioned it. So I became a doormat for her to try to win her favor back. She had no car, so I drove her everywhere. She got ditched by her friends when it came to campus housing after planning to ditch me but not telling me anything, leaving me to a random roommate assignment because by her plan I'd only find out when it was too late to pick someone, and I pulled her back in to be my roommate so she would have a place to stay, after which she continued to treat my presence like the most annoying thing ever. Her cat got sick and she had no money, so I paid for her cat's emergency treatment. And if it were fresh in my memory I could list so much more. And truth be told I'd be willing to give the shirt off of my back to any of my friends. I value them so much. For her it was no different. She took advantage of that, but it was never enough to win back her friendship. Then after college we drifted apart. I tried again to rekindle a friendship. We were once like sisters, and I thought it was worth trying to save it. She invited me to her house for a dinner party with her friends. We were watching some show with a character that looked familiar. I asked to use her computer to look up the actor, and open on the desktop was a chat with her boyfriend about how she wished her high school friends would just stop trying. Apparently I stopped being a friend to her in high school. So I did as she wished and I stopped trying. I told her I saw the chat and that we were done. I haven't spoken to her in nearly 10 years. We got drunk the day before we'd go home for Thanksgiving break. I was going home a day earlier than her. She struggled with depressions, which I already knew, but that night she drunkenly told me that she tried to kill herself already too, was waiting to do it again over Christmas break because she'd be alone. It hit me that with me going in the morning, she'd be alone in her dorm room the next day. I had no clue to know if she wasn't telling the truth and exaggerating in a drunken ramble, so I called my mom, a licensed social worker, for help. Wrong move. She's under legal obligation to report it to the police. I didn't even have a say in the matter. Police were called. There was no going back, and I decided to stand by my decision, knowing I would lose her, but hopefully get her some help. Got the RA, snuck her phone, and called her brother, who went to the same school as us. He called her parents, and she got taken to the hospital crying about how I betrayed her trust. I was the first and only person she told. I betrayed that, and it's stuck with me, because I know it probably messed her up. After it was over, she claims that she knew why I did it, and she wasn't mad, but it didn't matter. Damage was done. We talked maybe a handful of times, and it's been about 2 years later. Sometimes I see pictures she or a friend posts, and she looks like she's doing well, and that makes me smile, even though I miss her so much. Tried reaching out to her one time. She ignored my text. but she seems to be alive and happy, so that's all that matters, I suppose. We got too close. I got feelings for her, she got feelings for me, and up until that point we both thought we were straight females. We were never official, but the texts we sent one another weren't texts straight girls send. The only problem was, she had a boyfriend the whole time. And I knew. He was a shit guy, but they were still together. We lived in different countries, so I guess I didn't feel as bad. It was really fucking stupid, and I never should have let it happen, but I really did love her. We'd spend hours FaceTiming one another until he came home from work, and then we couldn't talk. It was so fucking dumb, but I was young and in love, so just kept with it. Eventually they broke up. She rang me at 5 AM crying in her car, and I was there for her. A few weeks later she told me she didn't feel the way I thought she did for me, that I meant the things that I said, but not in the way you wanted. I was heartbroken. We haven't spoken in over a year now. Haven't felt the same way towards someone since. Sometimes I think about messaging her again, because aside from all the gay shit we had a really good friendship, we had everything in common. But I just can't put myself through that again. She's doing well now from what I can see, lost weight after her breakup and looks really good. I wish nothing but the best for her, but I don't think I could get close to her again. On the plus side though, she helped me realize I'm bi. We moved into both our first apartments together. I was staying at my BF's house 5 or more days of the week, so I suggested we get a 1-bedroom to save money on space I wouldn't be using very often. I had a bed tucked in the corner of the living room, a dresser, and a cubby. She also had 2 dogs. One was a rescue from a puppy mill and the other was a puppy that had been abandoned in the street. The older dog had abandonment issues. It would revenge piss or poop when he was mad. The puppy would take after his habits because she didn't know how to punish him at all. The puppy would also chew everything up like most do. I would come home from school to a huge mess and dog accidents everywhere. I'd clean it all up before she and her BF would get home. She eventually blamed me for the huge mess and leaving my crap everywhere. I didn't have a closet or a lot of storage like she did. She was pissed I one time left my undies on the floor, but it's not like I haven't seen her clothes thrown everywhere in her room. She accused me for the apartment being gross. I pointed out I'm hardly home, and that when I do come home I clean up the mess her dogs made, because she refuses to give them the training they need. This made her more mad, and she kicked me out. The last time I stopped by the apartment to grab the last of my things, the place smelled horrendously of dog shit. There were poop and pee piles everywhere along with the stuffing of her stuffed animals. I haven't spoken to her in months. I did try reaching out but she never responded. I apologized for something I and our other mutual friends feel I didn't do wrong. She was my best friend up until that event. I think she had a psychotic breakdown. She had a blood disease that meant terrible allergies like ambient mold outside in the autumn could send her into anaphylactic shock. She also had controlling, religiously conservative, emotionally abusive parents, a manipulative ex-boyfriend, the "if you leave me, I will kill myself" type of emotional abuse, plus a history of struggling against anorexia with a lot of hang-ups about food. So very shortly after coming to college, she really let loose, went crazy with decorating her room and claiming her space / her own body, met a nice boy, fell in love, and wound up pregnant. Between her shitty parents and her life-threatening health condition, she decided to terminate her pregnancy. I and other friends circled around her supportively. I loaned her $500. I and other friends walked with her to therapy, drive her to doctor appointments, took away knives when she started to self-harm, and wrestled her to the floor when she threatened to jump off a nearby bridge known for being lethal. One by one, she turned on us, slammed doors in our faces, made accusations about what we plotted against her. She snuck into one girl's room and literally cut faces out of the photos the girl had posted on her wall. This culminated in her trying to get me kicked out of school by telling the dean of students I had threatened, harassed, and purposefully ostracized her. The dean believed her, despite the lack of evidence. Honestly, I think my friend believed herself too. I was forced to write an apology letter for behaviors I didn't do or get expelled. I also faced the threat of expulsion if I ever talked to my friend again or even talked about her publicly. So yeah, our last contact was a letter the dean made me write, which the dean then edited and sent. I don't really blame that girl. She needed serious medical and psychological help. The dean of students failed us both with that whole debacle. I hope she's alright now. That was 13 years ago. I'd posted this story before. It wasn't one incident, but the last straw for her was not being the center of attention at my wedding. She was used to being the prettier one and getting all the male attention. She craved that. I didn't have those same issues, and I don't like being the center of attention. I don't remember encouraging or discouraging her behavior, though I do think I lead by example pretty well. She would sit on guys' laps and flirt with them, including my boyfriends. My boyfriend was very uncomfortable and would promptly make an excuse to get up. He said something to me about it, and I just calmed him down and dismissed her behavior. Looking back at it, I feel I should have said something to her. She was in a serious relationship at the time and shouldn't have been acting like that. I completely trusted my boyfriend at the time. He's a trustworthy guy, that's why I married him. She asked to be my bridesmaid, so I caved and let her. I wasn't going to have one. She didn't do any of the normal bridesmaid stuff. My mom planned the wedding shower because she didn't want to. She never took me out to celebrate my engagement. I bought her bridesmaid gifts. She didn't even give me a wedding present. Which is odd, because we used to exchange gifts often and go out often. She wasn't poor, and she wasn't too busy. The color I chose for the wedding was burnt orange. I had large orange lilies. It was nice. She didn't want to wear orange, and like I said, I didn't care about the wedding party thing anyway, so I told her she could wear whatever she wanted. Cut to the wedding day. She showed up late and wearing a white dress. I didn't care. I was busy doing other things. I don't get upset easily, and things don't bother me. So I just carried on. She kept trying to get everyone's attention, but all the attention was on me. It was my wedding. She was very jealous. Looking back at it, I can see she had been jealous for a while. At some point I had become the one that was more interesting to be around, and people seemed to like me more. She was no longer getting the attention she desired, and we haven't seen each other since my wedding. She never invited me to her wedding, even though when she begged to be my bridesmaid she told me that I would be hers. I asked her several times if she wanted to bring her family to my out-of-state wedding for a weekend. She said no. I set her up for the trip, free food, free room, I was going to drive her wherever. She only had to pay for her dress $90 and plane ticket. 2 weeks before the wedding she wants to either come late and miss rehearsal or miss the reception. I was annoyed, but I tell her to come late. It's agreed on. Then the next minute she's asking to bring her baby instead. I ask her if she can solve the dozen or so problems that would suddenly give me. Her free room is with us at my grandma-in-law's. The room is directly next to 80-year-old grandma who owns and operates a ranch in SD. She put her and great-grandkids in the basement so she wouldn't be kept awake. Who watches the baby during the ceremony? Baby can't be outside. It's taking place on a hill and few minutes walk from the nearest building. She said she was going to carry the baby down the aisle. And is it really a big deal if she fusses? Yes. I would have been totally cool if her boyfriend had come to help, or if she had given me a notice it was her and the baby a few months before when I was making arrangements for everyone. So I told her no, it wouldn't work out. She ghosted on me for a week. By the time she finally got back to me, I replaced her and uninvited her. She was my best friend for 15 years, but it wasn't the first time that she acted like an entitled brat. I went to all her births. I went to / through her baby showers. I got her kids gifts every Christmas. I went to their birthday parties. I just wanted one fucking weekend. And I knew I couldn't let her come after ghosting on me because she would have pouted the entire time. 2 friends, actually. First one staged a suicide attempt via Facebook 3 months after my mom had gotten out of the mental ward after a 2-month stay for a major depressive episode. Friend later confessed, after being confronted, that she did it deliberately because she was salty at all the attention I got from out mutual friends over my mom's hospitalization. I was 19, we'd been friends since first grade, and lived around the block from each other. 3 years later, another friend since elementary school had developed into a pretty severe alcoholic, and had completely changed as a person, alienating most of his friends and certainly his roommates, after assaulting one of them, while drunk and repeatedly blowing all of his rent and utility money on booze. Friendship ending moment for me was at a party where he locked me in his room, demanded to know why everyone seemed so mad at him, and when I broached the subject of his drinking completely lost his shit at me and told me that I deserved every time my mom ever abused because I was a terrible person and it's a shame she never killed me. My then boyfriend heard him yelling and me crying through the door, ended up having to break the lock, and we had to call the cops on my friend because he was totally out of control. He and I never spoke again. Fun fact, second one was gay, first one was obsessed with him for years despite knowing this. I heard from mutual friends that they reconnected after the party event, and he strung her along for a few months for fun. No idea where either of them are now, but they certainly deserve each other's company. He started ghosting me and only contacted me when he wanted something. We met when we were both only a year old. His dad committed suicide when he was 8, and my dad did as much as he could to make sure he still had a father figure, along with my friend's uncle. We were inseparable until 2010, when we moved out of California, me to the Midwest and him to Oregon. He stopped answering texts and calls. He's talked to me 3 times in the past 4 years. To ask for my address, so he could send a card containing a link to his baby's registry. To invite me to their baby shower, all the way across the US, knowing I couldn't make it, and a link to another registry. And to ask if his girlfriend could stay at our place and borrow our car for a few days while she interviewed in the city we lived in. We'd never met her. Each time he said he was sorry and that he wanted to try to talk more, but then it went right back to radio silence. When his uncle died, I was there for him, but he's never asked about my dad, who treated him like a son and a member of the family that's suffering from dementia. Even though he knows this, I started suffering panic attacks because of dealing with my dad's illness. Told him this, and he couldn't be bothered to check in. So after I realized he only contacted me when he wanted something, I just stopped trying to reach out to him, and we haven't spoken in well over a year now. Her boyfriend got violent with me, and she defended him. We were 20 and 21 at the time, and on a double date with assos of 2 years. Mine was 22, but hers was much older, like 28 I think. Anyway, they're fighting the whole night and it's super awkward. We decide to go play a laser tag and obviously I team up with my then boyfriend, now fiance, and she teams up with her boyfriend, who I think is now her fiance *SHUDDERS*. We are playing the game, and at one point, I find her crouched down in the corner. I start shooting her, she dies, but because she has to wait to respawn, I have the advantage, so I just keep killing her. It was all in good fun. Eventually she's yelling stop, and I'm just thinking she's playfully annoyed at losing, but then her boyfriend comes out of nowhere and violently shoves me against the wall, and I fall over. WTF. They run away after, and my boyfriend eventually catches up with me. I tell him what happened, and we decide to confront him after. I'm not hurt, really, but decently shaken up. The game ends and my boyfriend approaches him and starts giving him shit for getting violent / breaking the game rules / crazy overreacting. We ask him what he would done if I'd just been some child attacking her, and he was like, yeah, I'd shove an 8-year-old like that. We were floored at such a disgusting outlook. I'd heard from my friend that he was sort of violent, thrown his phone in her general direction and cracked it, etc., but just brushed it off. Until this. The night ended badly with her crying because we confronted him. I messaged her the next day asking WTF happened, and she said she had been feeling very anxious and he was protecting her in the game and that I shouldn't have cornered her. I told her that it was not my intention to make her anxious, but that was the game, and no matter what it did not justify getting physical with me or anyone. She disagreed, like he was protecting her honor. I said I didn't want to hang out as double dates anymore, and she basically said then she didn't want to be friends anymore, and that was it. Like 5 years of friendship down the drain. It wasn't just one incident, but it built up to one incident. I moved away from home to New Orleans and met this woman who took a very shy and introverted me under her wing. I was flattered that she took to me. Her family had money and she would take me to fundraisers, parties, and even vacations. Trouble started when she didn't like how I dressed or complained I didn't speak in a manner that she felt was worth being seen with me in public. I tried and tried without success to fit into her mold of what this theoretical woman was supposed to be. But this went on for years. I started arguing back with her, but eventually giving in, because I'd think well we've had so many good times together in the past, let's just get back to that. I was born with parents from Appalachia, and I was raised not far from that environment. She liked to call me and my parents insular mountain people. I really began to resent that. She also liked to call me fat. Of course all we did was go out to eat. I started gaining weight and feeling obligated to go out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with her. I had also re-enrolled in college to finish my undergraduate degree at night while I was working full time. I made straight A's. She graduated from the same university about 15 years earlier and would regularly comment, "Well, it's obviously easier today as opposed to when I attended." Constant passive-aggressive put-downs. I used to go home and cry at times after listening to this shit. The final straw was that I left that city and decided to attend graduate school overseas on a scholarship. She made plans to visit me saying we needed to split costs. I said okay, not really realizing that my idea of splitting costs is eating out at pubs and staying in an expensive accommodation. Not so much her. We went to London, to Balmoral. She had me rent a car in Britain, an automatic no less, which cost a lot more. Keep in mind I was a poor student and she began to become angry at me for being unable to shoulder half the costs of everything she wanted to do. One day she got a bee in her bonnet to go clay shooting in the Scottish countryside. She couldn't find the location where the instructors were and started just berating me. Eventually she told me to get out of the car and go ask at a public facility. The woman didn't know, but said she'd print out a map for me. My friend started to yell at me in public and eventually cursing at me so loud everyone else could hear her. I apologized to the woman who was trying to help me, walked over to the car, slammed the door, and told the friend if she said one more thing I was going to physically hurt her. I have never been so angry in my life. She tried to put me out in the middle of nowhere. I said take me to a train station and I'll be glad to leave. 7 years of fucking up my already shit self-esteem, humiliating me in public and even around my British friends, who told me she did seem like an absolute ass. Well, the joke is on her. I lost a ton of weight and I don't have to listen to her flap her fucking mouth. I have 2 postgraduate degrees from a British university, worked for a member of parliament despite growing up in poverty. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.